King Sindibad and his Falcon, the Arabian Nights. It is said, but Allah is all-knowing, that there is a king of the kings of Fars, who was fond of pleasuring and diversion, especially coursing and hunting. He'd reared a falcon, which he carried all night on his fist, and whenever he went a-chasing, he took with him this bird. And he bade make for her a golden couplet hung around her neck, to give her drink. One day, as the king was sitting quietly in his palace, the high falconer of the household suddenly addressed him. "O king of the age, this is indeed a day fit for birding." The king gave orders accordingly, and set out taking the hawk on fist. And they fared merrily forwards, till they made a wadi, where they planted a circle of nets for the chase. When a gazelle came within the toils, and the king cried, "Whoever allows this gazelle to spring over his head and loses her, that man I will surely slay." They narrowed the nets about the gazelle when she drew near the king's station, and planting herself on her hind quarter, crossed her forehand over her breast, as if about to kiss the earth before the king. He bowed his brow low in acknowledgment, and then the gazelle bounded high over his head and took the way of the waist. Thereupon the king turned towards his troops, and seeing them winking and pointing at him, he asked, "O Wazir, what are my men saying?" And the minister answered, "They say that you proclaim that whoever allows the gazelle to spring over his head, that man shall be put to death." And the king said, "Now, by the life of my head, I will follow her up until I bring her back." So he set off galloping on the gazelle's trail, and gave not over tracking till he reached the foothills of a mountain chain, where the quarry made for a cave. Then the king cast off at it the falcon, which presently caught it up, and swooping down drove her talons into its eyes, bewildering and blinding it. And the king drew his mace, and struck a blow which rolled the game over. He then dismounted, and after cutting the antelope's throat and flaying the body, hung it to the pommel of his saddle. Now the time was that of the siesta, and the world was parched and dry, nor was any water to be found anywhere. And the king thirsted, and his horse also. So he went about searching till he saw a tree dropping water, as it were melted butter, from its boughs. Thereupon the king, who wore gauntlets of skin to guard him against poisons, took the cup from the hawk's neck, and filling it with the water, set it before the bird. And the falcon struck it with her pounces and upset the liquid. The king filled it a second time with the dripping drops, thinking his hawk was thirsty. But the bird again struck at the cup with her talons and overturned it. Then the king got angry with the hawk, and filled the cup a third time, and offered it to his horse. But the hawk upset it with a flick of its wings. And the king said, "Allah confound thee! You're the unluckiest of flying things. You keep me from drinking, and you deprive yourself and the horse." So he struck the falcon with his sword and cut off her wing. But the bird raised her head and said by signs, "Look at that which hangs on the tree." The king lifted up his eyes accordingly and caught sight of a brood of vipers, whose poisoned drops he mistook for water. Thereupon he repented at having struck off his falcon's wing, and mounting his horse, fared on with the dead gazelle, till he arrived at the camp, his starting place. He threw the quarry to cook, saying, "Take and broil it," and sat down on his chair, the falcon being still on his fist, when suddenly the bird gasped and died. Whereupon the king cried out in sorrow and remorse for having slain that falcon which had saved his life. Now this is what occurred in the case of King Sindibad, and I'm assured that were I to do as you desire, I should repent even as the man who killed his parrot." The wazir said, "And how was that?" And the king began to tell the tale of the husband and the parrot. Next.